everybody. I hope that you are doing well. This is not a, this is real behind me. I don't have a green screen behind me, so I don't have an intro quilt behind me like we usually have, because I'm on the road. We've been on the road, and I'm in my hotel room, this very nice hotel that I got for one night only. Well, actually, 2 nights. But actually last night, I came to the hotel and the room that they had, the air conditioning was broken and it was terrible. So I went into this little tiny, sad room last night. So then they gave me this as an apology. So yeah, it was one of those hotel things where like they really felt bad and they only had one upgrade room that was available, and it's like the really good one. Let me see. Look at this place. Oh, isn't it great? Look at this place. Look at this place. And there is a textile on the wall, so I was like, this is fine. Anyway, it's pretty nice. So I'm feeling grateful. Very grateful. Hold on, move this around. So I hope that people had fun at the show. What am I doing here? All the cameras are different. Stephanie, all the cameras are different. They're different when I'm walking around, and they're different when I'm in a hotel, and I just want them to be the same. Cake, you're back. Yes.
I'm back. I didn't go anywhere. You just couldn't see me for a few days.
That's right. It's true. Yeah, and you were right there, and thank goodness you were, because there was a lot happening. Did you enjoy being at the fair? At the fair. At the fair. Yeah. Uh-oh. Hold on. We got a little bit of a delay on the cake. Just a minute. We'll work it out.
I was watching right now is In Love with Michael Cummings. Uh-oh.
Yes, we had a little, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do something. I might have to give you a new link, Steph. I know what I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put you on the, on my cellular network instead of the Wi-Fi, because I think that that's what you should be on. Okay, now you're on the cellular network, and I think perhaps, because it feels like it was from my end. So anyway, so I will ask you again, and maybe people heard you and I didn't, but so did you enjoy being at the Birmingham show? Essentially,
I did. I really did. It was so much fun, and just to be able to see you guys walk around, and Susanna was the content director on the day.
It's true.
It was so good to see our UK nerds, Viv and Marianne.
Yeah. And yeah, it was, and the quilts, right? Like those were amazing. I mean, the cool part ultimately is the people always, right? Like, meeting artists and like seeing people and but the backdrop when you're at a quilt show, the backdrop is all this art, which is so cool. Boy, Fanny Man.
And I think everybody's in love with Michael Cummings. And he is now an honorary nerd.
He definitely is. And yes, that moment was, everybody's talking about it, and I'm talking about it. It was so great. The best moment of the show, if you saw yesterday, and I'll just tell for people who weren't there, haven't seen the replay yet, we went up to Michael Cummings and we were talking to him, and we did a very polite 3-question moment with Michael Cummings, the great artist. We'll take a look at his work more and again and all the time now. On every show there'll be a Michael Cummings segment. And he goes, and he was so lovely, and he goes, "Oh, it's over?" It's like, "Oh." And he was like, I don't want it to be over. He just said, "Oh, it's over." And we were like, no, Mr. Cummings, no, we will talk to you all day. And he was so great. And we were talking for some time. And then finally I was like, if he wants to go, now he's trapped, because he thinks we're going to talk to him forever. And we are, except that I am going to try to be a conscientious host and close this up. But yeah, I'm going to ask him if it's okay. I'm going to ask him if it's okay I'll cut a video of his answer, and I'll put I'll make it into a video to post it on YouTube after I clear it with him. And to be clear, I wouldn't have to. I'm not saying that because I'm not going to check with it, but just so you know, like the fair use thing, and like if you're in a public space and you're being interviewed and someone's like, "We're live," like this is on the internet, like I could cut it and not let him know, but like why would I do that? I'm gonna be like, hi, remember me? Like, we're this thing and we're nerds and we love you. And is this okay? This 4-minute video of you answering these questions? Because then it gives us a chance to talk to Michael Cummings again. But just so you know, it's, I wouldn't have to. So if you interview somebody at a quilt show, it's your footage. I don't want to get into like copyright law. I mean, but it's just weird. We live in a weird time. Like one woman came up to me at the show. I was working the Kirikoff exhibit, and she was like, may I take a picture of this quilt and post it on Instagram? And I was like, I love you for asking. Yes, you definitely can. Like, everything's a crazy disaster, and it's wonderful, and you can post everything that you see, basically. So anyway, the point is Michael Cummings is great, and we got to talk to him for a while, and so that's on the recording of the show from yesterday. And yeah, when he was like, I don't want to, is it over? I was like, oh. So I want to say hi to some people here. Wah! Padma and Myra and Pemberito and Terry Pert. Maybe it's Terry Perty. Good morning from Seattle. Oh, and guess what is here? Soundboard is here. Got the duck. We've got the goose. We've got the shoo shoo. We've got the nan horn. That's nothing. This is the Why not go through a little soundboard tutorial? That's Dusty Springfield. Okay. Well, I have to press them. My favorite. Twilight Zone. Okay. Clapping, yes. When somebody's in trouble. Quilt Church, the name of the show originally, and that's right. And then there's the grads. We don't use those. We don't use that so much. There's space in the soundboard. So Stephanie Cake, a little later in the show, I might want to go through yours too. We'll see. So I'm really glad you're here, Terry. That's so cool. And we had a brand new subscriber yesterday who subscribed for 3 months, and I'll have to find out. I didn't think about it till this very moment, but we welcome anybody new who's joining the show, watching the replay. It's just wonderful to be able to do this kind of stuff together. So it's cool. We're glad you're around. Texas Farm Girl. What's up, girl? Okay. Raffle Waffle. Happy Saturday. You left Coasters are up early. Yeah, it's 3:20 now here in London. I'm in London still. I leave tomorrow. And hey, Bird Nerd, and Sweet Peas and Taters. And I leave tomorrow, and so it's the afternoon for us. And the morning show for you people in the States, the morning show keeps coming up as being a thing that is very attractive for this community, including those of us on this side of the show. And by the way, we have Susanna is also on this side of the show, because Susanna is also in England. Hey, Susanna.
Is my sound okay?
Yes, your sound is okay.
Okay, good.
Good. So perhaps we will check in with you too and see if, because you're still in Birmingham, right?
Yeah. So I went over to the show this morning. So.
Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about a few of the things, maybe you could weigh in with some hot takes if you have them. I don't know. I don't even know what my questions would be yet. But hey, Joyous Fivers. Myra's gonna go to a sewing group, a virtual sew-in. Hey, Linda, and by the way, Terry, those welcome baskets in the chat, those are for you. We welcome anybody new to this show with lots of a bounty of things. Bridgewater, and I'm saying hi to everybody. Kind of late. So I am going to share what the show will be today. And it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. If you're coming here for the first time, you should know that it's a little bit different. It looks a little bit different because I'm on the road. And on Tuesday, for the Tuesday show, which happens at 7 p.m. Central Time, because I'll be in Chicago, it'll be like the full Monty of the Quilt Nerd experience. And I'm really excited to be home. I'm excited to have all my books and the scanner and an office. And I won't have big, heavy bags to carry around, which will be kind of nice. I'll be footloose and fancy-free and full of great quilt content for you. But today is no different. Today is no different. It just looks a little bit different. So on the menu for today, oh, hi, Mimi. On the menu today, I'm going to take you through the lecture I gave a little bit. I'm not going to do the whole thing because, what's the fun in that? That'll be a more special, for a very special presentation, a very special episode of Quilt Nerd or something. We'll do a lecture thing. But I do want to show you what it looked like and what I talked about, because it was really, you know what, Kate, maybe Stephanie might have said, or Susanna might have said, it was sold out. It was sold out. And there were people standing in the back. I saw them. It was good. Yeah. Oh, and I was getting the sound check guys. I love the sound guys. You got to go in and get mic'd up and everything. And I was just horsing around with them. Well, not horsing around. That kind of implies, I don't know. What is horsing around when you're an adult? But I was goofing around with them, and the one guy said, I think he said, it was the way he was like, yeah, it's a right press. Right press. The people were coming in and, yeah, SRO, okay. It was good. Yes, it went well. Okay, so I'm gonna go through that a little bit because the slides are so fun. I do different art direction, for every lecture. It's very, very important to me. That's why it's so stressful to get them ready, because I take so much time with my slides. But this one is a very good look. I like the direction I went. And then I thought, so people love Liberty of London so much. Of course, who doesn't? But some people don't know what that is. Right? It occurred to me, it's like, when I probably heard about Liberty of London from Mom, and, it's a department store. Like, it started as a department store. Well, it started as we'll look at the history of Liberty. We're going to look at the history of Liberty a little. There's 2 videos I want to show you. There's a 5-minute video, beautiful, produced by Liberty, of course, about designing fabric, the process of designing fabric. And then there's a beautiful video that's it's about 1.5 minutes of just music playing while you go and see the fabric being printed at the printing facility, or at least one of them. Those are really good. And then I didn't actually look for a history, explainer of Liberty video. So Steph, if you poke around and you can find something that looks decent, I know you don't have to screen it or anything, but I don't know. If you see something that looks, not 45 minutes long and kind of punchy, Liberty may have created one themselves, but anyway, but we're going to look at Liberty a little bit. So that's the idea. And also Stephanie and Susanna, aka Cake and Pie, we were talking about the show today. We were talking yesterday about what to talk about today, and some questions, about just topics of discussion that were really interesting. We were thinking about is what is it like to curate or to produce an exhibit at a quilt show like that? Because I co-produced. Quilt Folk sponsored the Kirikoff exhibit. I co-produced it, had a big part in that, and it was my first time doing that, and it was kind of hard, and it was really cool, but I learned a lot, and I could kind of tell you, if you ever wanted to do an exhibit of something, not just your own work, but something else, I could tell you a little bit about that, and about how much it costs to ship quilts across an ocean. So that's the idea. So let us go to Padma. No, we did not film the lecture, because that is a complicated situation. It's also, it's really good. I gotta get small. Help, I'm fall. What do you think about that? I don't have the green screen, but I put myself in a bubble. Help, I'm in a bubble. Thanks, Cake. I like that. Kind of a big deal. What was I gonna say? I don't know. Oh yeah, filming the lecture. You're in a better position right now to see anything lecture-like. Because when you film a lecture, if you just film from the audience, aside from the fact that filming the lectures, the main thing is that it just doesn't look great, because the slides, when you film a slide or you film a computer screen or a display, the colors are kind of weird, and then I'm also far away. So the sneak peek or the overview you're gonna get right now. Sorry, let me pull it up. is way better than like seeing a tape of the lecture. But I do also want you to be able to see the lecture at some point. Hold on, I have to switch a cord. While I'm doing that, Susanna, I heard you saw someone famous at breakfast this morning. Yeah?
I watched Michael Cummings at breakfast.
Oh my God, you did?
And Kate Fassett and his partner.
I knew about.
I did not steal any food and sell it on eBay or anything like that, I promise.
So we wouldn't be able to go on eBay and see any food Kate Fassett ate because it already sold, right? Because it already sold.
And there's no napkin that we can give away at the end of the month as like a Quilt Nerd giveaway.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would have been good. That would have been good.
There's still tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
There's
still tomorrow morning. Well, yeah, I mean, you know where they like to go. Where is this thing? Oh, I know.
Me too. I know where to find them.
Hold on now. Get some DNA. Hang on now. I'm just... I hooked this up and everything's going to be fine. Oh, here. Nope. Who else did we see? Did we see other celebrities? Oh, well, okay. One of the cool things about the lecture was all those Liberty people were there. All of the Liberty kids came, and that was really cool. Eleanor, who's a designer for Liberty. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we saw, I can say a few more as you get
Yeah.
set up.
Yeah.
We saw Chris English.
Oh, yeah.
I think you talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
Quilter on Fire. I saw her today.
Oh, good.
Taking some clips and things.
Good.
Who else did we see?
Who else did...
I probably saw a lot of people that I don't like, to be honest.
Oh, no, that you don't like? Oh, careful now. Careful on this internet.
No.
Okay.
I don't know what they look like.
Oh, okay.
You know, name it.
I missed that part.
No.
I'm almost there. I got this hooked up. Okay. And then, I mean, I think for me, like the exhibits were the highlight. The display capture. Here we go. Exhibits were the highlight. People were the highlights. I don't know. I mean, I thought the whole show was really fun. It's really fun to be at. And here we go. Okay. Is that thing covering my face? It is probably, isn't it? Excellent. Can you see that, everybody? You guys seeing that? Does it show up? Does it say showstoppers?
It does.
Okay, good. So now I just need to do a little bit of that action and bring it down right about here and get the chat up here. Thanks for hanging in, guys. I just wanted to get some things right. Okay, so I will hide even the logo for a moment, but I'll leave my head up here. Okay, so we are going to, I'm going to take you through a few of these. I'll do the intro, right? I'll give you the kind of the introduction, and also give you the highlights, man. Okay, so here we go. Without the green screen, I'm a little discombobulated, but here we go. So the title of the lecture that I pitched last year, whenever I pitched it, was, Showstoppers, right? 20 masterpiece quilts from America and the UK, because I thought it'd be really fun to just look at really beautiful quilts. And my brain was like tired, and I couldn't think of anything, sort of more like, juicy or something than that. But I knew that it would be just like an episode of Quilt Nerd where we look at stuff together and it's beautiful, and I could do a deeper dive and a more focused, presentation. It's an actual lecture, right? So I would prepare all this material about 20 beautiful quilts, interesting quilts, fascinating quilts from America and the United Kingdom. And so, let me go here. I can do this like this. Oh, hold on. Gotta do single view. So, and so that's what I did. And I didn't talk about it in this way, but sometimes you all, I don't know if I've told you, but with the show, especially when I was doing like 3 to 4 shows a week, sometimes I would be like, I don't know what to do for the show. I think I should just get beautiful quilts to look at. And that would just be, the easiest way to have great content was like, Mary, just pull together beautiful quilts and look at them with the Quilt Nerds. And so in a way, that was kind of what I did with this too. It's like I was like, let's just look at beautiful quilts. The lecture will be great. So anyway, so in the introduction of the talk, I say that I always pitch a lecture to a new show that I haven't written yet, or I haven't created, because doing a lecture, and now I'm really in full lecture mode. Okay, yeah. So because when I do a lecture, when I have scheduled a lecture in my life that I have to do, and it gives me a very, very hard deadline to get it done, because I have to show up at a certain time on a certain day and present to a group of people, sometimes a large group of people, about this topic, right, that I have said I want to lecture on. And so the best thing for me to do, in my experience, is to pitch an idea that I want to learn about, because then I have to focus my time and I have to focus my energy on learning about it. So for QuiltCon, this happened every year. I pitched a lecture one year on the AIDS quilt, because people would ask me about the AIDS quilt, and I didn't know anything, and so I was like, I want to talk about the AIDS quilts, because that means I'm going to go learn it. And learn about it. And I also did that with like political quilts and quilts and feminism. And it was like, well, let's see what we can find out. And so because I do that, because I pitch the thing and I have to give it a title, and then I actually do the lecture, then I do all the work to make the thing, my titles are terrible. My titles are always the worst. Like it's bad. So, the original title of this lecture was Showstoppers, 20 Masterpiece Quilts from the UK and the US, and it's like, there's not 20 quilts in this lecture. There's like 85, like at least. So, and it's not a tough crowd. If I said there were fewer quilts, sorry, there's like only 15 or there's only 12, that would be bad. But no, there are many, many more. And so then I talked about the thank yous. I thanked the people for coming, of course. Thank you to you. How important it is, to go to these shows if we like this world that we're in. It's not hard. It's not hard to go to a show, if you're really into quilts. There's a quilt show, but the quilt shows can't happen unless people do go. I said hi. Talked about Eric and I living in London and how we miss you. And they liked that. That got a big laugh. Actually, it wasn't a raucous crowd in Birmingham, England, but. Okay, I'm laughing. They loved it when I ate chips. Brought down the house. I thanked the Festival of Quilts. Okay. Yeah, I like this like black tape, white marker kind of thing. I talked about Quilt Folk and how we were sponsoring the festival this year. One of the sponsors, we sponsored the Kirikoff exhibit. Spoke about Quilt Folk, things like that. Hey, Just So Viv. Hey, it was so cool to meet you. It was amazing. I'm so, so glad that you were there. She is delightful, by the way. Well, you all saw her yesterday. Just So Viv. Just so awesome. Told them to go see the exhibit and buy the second edition of the book. And the exhibit was just outside the theater doors. Okay. Oh, and look at that. We talked about this cross-stitch quilt on the show just the other day, and it was nearby on my laptop desktop, and so I put it behind one of the thank you cards here. Artisan Ed, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad that you're here, and I want to say welcome. I want to say welcome to you. I have a lovely soundboard of sound effects, but for some reason it can't play while I have my other monitor up. The important part is that you're here, and I'm really glad you're here, and I love that you love Quilt Folk. I do too. It is a great place to be in the quilt world. So I'm just glad you're here, and I don't know if you've, you've got the, okay, oh, hello, first time chatter. Okay, I'm behind. So okay, all those welcome baskets are for you. We're really glad that you came by. So then, here we go. So then I say, and the third thank you that I have, because I thanked you for coming, and I thanked the Festival of Quilts for having me and having us, and then I thank England. Thank you, England. Thank you, England. Because American patchwork traditions, and applique traditions and all the quilting traditions come from England. I mean, we really have Britain to thank for the way our quilts look, you know. And this is so I'll show you a little bit about that. So this is a quilt from 1726. And I tell people that, you know, in my lectures I have lots and lots and lots of slides, and partly that's because I show you a quilt, but see, you're back in the audience, you know. As a viewer, I try to think like a viewer. You're in the audience, you're looking at this quilt. It's great. You can't see it though, close up. And so for most quilts, I'll put, you know, the quilt full view and then go in like we can do on Quilt Nerd. See, on Quilt Nerd, we don't have that problem. We can zoom in on quilts all we want. I love it. It's one of the best parts about this live streaming format. We can get up really, really, really close to things in real time, almost like you're there. But in the lecture, I do it like this. So this quilt was made in 1726. It's at the V&A, and it's an extraordinary work of patchwork beauty. And I think it's just a top, I think. But this is a highly unusual quilt, right? Because it's full of so many different pieces of fabric, and it just is very unusual for its time. But so that's a quilt from Britain in 1726. Well, that's a quilt on the right from New England, and it's dated 1725 to 1750. It's at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And so these are contemporaneous quilts, you know, and one's from England and one's from America, and you have, I mean, there's half square triangles in there, you know, all over the place. And so these are similar material culture artifacts, right? And they look very similar. There's a relationship there. Same thing, quilt on the left, chintz quilt from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, late 18th century, England. And on the right, chintz applique, circa 1835 to 1840. So that's actually even a little earlier, the one from America, but that's in New England. Oh, by Mary Malvina Cook Taft. So yeah, the Mother Nature, totally. The funky half square triangles look so good. And the whole cloth quilts, don't those look great on the screen? Oh, I mean, that red just vibrates, you know. The whole cloth Calamanco quilt on the left, England, Metropolitan Museum of Art has this one, 1785 to 1810, so right around the turn of the 19th century, turn of the 19th century, from England. And then on the right, 1780, America, you know. So there's this relationship. And so I was thinking about, you know, when I pitched this lecture, okay, now I got to get into lecture mode. So I was thinking when I pitched this lecture, you know, that it would be just enjoying these beautiful quilts. And it is, you know, and we're going to launch into this parade of show-stopping quilts, right? But this is the framework. This is how I have to set it up. Because it always happens when I lecture that there's something very, you know, there's a deeper meaning that comes out of what I look at. You know, of course, the AIDS quilt is very meaningful, but like I didn't know that there was backlash to the AIDS quilt. Like, wow, you know, so these things get deeper. And so as I was looking at the UK quilts and the American quilts, it was like there is this relationship. And as long as I've been looking at quilt history, it's that same thing you hear. We get our patchwork traditions in America from England. All of our patchwork traditions, or all of our quilting traditions, come from England. And like, okay, cool. So what does that mean? And how do they diverge? And like, how come there's an American quilt then? Is it that we did our own thing? Like, well, yeah, but like, I just wanted to explore that more. Like, how does that work when America has all its patchwork traditions from England, but there's an American patchwork quilt? Is there a British patchwork quilt, or is there a British quilt? Iconic sort of British quilt. So I use these two quilts in the slides to indicate when we're talking about a UK or a US quilt maker. And I also had this kind of revelation when I was doing my show, Quilt Nerd, recently. Oh yeah, and this quilt, by the way, this is a wool quilt. It's for sale on firstdibs.com. I think it's like, I forget how much it is. It's a lot of money. It's thousands of pounds, many thousands of pounds. And it's wool, and this is the back. Thought I'd take a moment to show the back of this quilt, which is really great. And these are rare. I mean, I don't see a lot of quilts like this. It's a 19th century, maybe mid 19th century, I think. And that's the back. Very Amish bars looking, right? Very, we could say North Country, Durham, whatever. And then this, which I think we've looked at this quilt on the show before. It's so great. And I know this one is, I think, 15,000 pounds on First Dibs, something like that. This is one of my favorite quilts because of this thing in the corner. I gotta hide the chat. I mean, it's so totally bizarre. You know, this, hold on. This little, this moment up in the corner. It's like, what is going on here? What is going on here? And I like to think, and this got a laugh. I like to think that like a child in the family had scissors, and they cut the quilt. They cut a cut into it, and the person who made it was like, I'm going to kill the child, and then I'm going to do something about this really terrible chunk that they took out of this quilt, because it's just so random. I mean, it's so random. I mean, look, let's go back. It's like just up in the corner, you know, and it's Betsy Ross. They're like hanging out up at the edge of the quilt, like, you know, making a flag. It's so weird. And it's the presidents. It's like George Washington. But then it goes down to like Delano Roosevelt, and like, and so they were added later. So all these different little patchwork pieces are added later. But I absolutely love it. Keep quilts weird. That's what we say on this show. This quilt qualifies as weird. And it was made, by the way, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1922. Okay, let me get the chat back. So I had this revelation when I was doing the show, Quilt Nerd, which I talk about at the end, you can be sure. And it was when we were doing, it was when we were doing a show on Hawaiian quilts. Yeah, that's right. We were doing a show on Hawaiian quilts, and I had an idea. You know, the Hawaiian people, for a very long time, produced, and still it's a traditional, you know, artisan craft, kapa mo. Kapa mo is the fabric, the textile, it's not fabric. I mean, I don't know. The kapa mo is pounded wood. It's soaked like walnut, you know, bark, and it's pounded very soft and flat, and it's, you know, it's an organic material, and it's printed, painted, or stamped with these motifs, you know, these traditional for them motifs, and designs from the people and their history, and so it's kapa mo, and it's produced in Hawaii. And we were talking about Hawaiian quilts, and we talked about how Robert Shaw, a really well-known quilt scholar, in his book about Hawaiian quilts, he said that there was no greater example in the quilt world, but even beyond, there's no greater example of like a people in one culture taking the textile tradition, learning a textile tradition from another group of people, and then making it entirely their own. And so in this case, you know, the Hawaiian people, you know, they were colonized. There were colonizers who came in, set up shop, and brought with them, you know, these quilt traditions, these quilt textile traditions, patchwork, applique, quilting. They brought that to Hawaii, and the Hawaiians were like, okay, like we're doing our kapa mo thing, and I don't mean to make light of colonization. It's very weird and often very bloody and brutal. But in terms of the art making that happens, things get really interesting. And so the patchwork traditions from England then went to America, and then this quilt, for example, was given. So Hawaiian women made this quilt. A group of Hawaiian women made this quilt and gave it to a Mormon missionary who was leaving. And I got a bit of a laugh when I was like. And they were like, yes, please, here. This is our finest quilt. Goodbye, please leave. And so Robert Shaw makes the point is that in Hawaii, there's no better example of how the Hawaiian people took these patchwork traditions that they were suddenly faced with and made quilts their own. And the Hawaiian, because the Hawaiian quilt is like no other kind of quilt that we have, you know, in the West. It's iconic. I mean that its design is iconic. Here's another example. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I shouldn't do that. They're in the order for a reason. It's their own, they have their own motifs, their center medallion quilts, often it's reverse applique. I mean, they just did their own thing, okay? So that quilt, by the way, is 1880, and it says aloha around the center. So that's 1891, 81. So then I put these two things together, right? That piece of kapa mo and that, you know, Hawaiian quilt, which I think was a good example of how these motifs interrelate. And I mean, you know, there's floral patterns and there's, you know, nature motifs and things in every culture's art. But when you look at Kapamo and then you look at Hawaiian quilts, like you can see the relationship that one people were doing one thing and then they learned about something else and they melded together to make something new. And so that quilt on the left is a Hawaiian quilt from 1938, and was named one of the best quilts of the 20th century, by the way. And so that's, the tradition continues to evolve. There's early Hawaiian, then there's, mid-century Hawaiian. And then on the right, there is, the tradition of Hawaiian quilts continues to evolve. And we see this in the Jonathan quilt by Elizabeth Akana. And then I blew everybody away, right? Because, nope. I blew everybody away with that. It was so amazing. I did the good close up there. So and then I was like, but that's not all to this quilt, and it's not even one of the showstoppers technically. But I showed them the back, and I know the chat screen is sort of occluding that, but that's because this isn't the real lecture. It's not an official presentation, so this is the bootleg version. But I showed them that Elizabeth Akana did a two-sided quilt. This is two sides of the same quilt, and the front, the pink version, the pink side is called Jonathan, and her inspiration had something to do with Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the great story by, and then My Way is the back of the quilt, and she uses the quilting to do completely different things, to be part of the design on both sides of the quilt. So and she's a scholar of Hawaiian history, and Elizabeth Akana is just great. So I was kind of thinking, basically, that the relationship between UK and US quilts, or the history there, is that the Americans had our traditions from England in quilting and patchwork and all of that. But then in America, we start making it our own. And it really does become this, cultural, exchange. It's still an exchange, but the Americans really did make the quilt their own, but it's all based in what we had from before. So maybe that's sort of evident, but I thought the Hawaiian quilt analogy, it helped me kind of understand, we say quilts have a relationship, but what does that even mean, with these two different places? Okay, so then it was like showstoppers, but how to pick? I'm supposed to pick 20. And I was like, I can't do Harriet Powers. I'm not going to pick Harriet Powers because she's been published everywhere, and I talked about I wanted to talk about Tracy Emin, but I didn't. Okay, now the chat box is maybe kind of a problem. Hang on. I was like, I can't talk about Tracy Emin because people know Tracy Emin, and I love her work, and she's not really a quilt maker in the UK, but she's an artist who did quilts, and I love that. But I'm like, she gets lots of attention. And then, am I going to do beautiful old coverlets from the V&A? Well, they're at the V&A. They have a lot of attention. Perhaps I should talk about the quilts of Gee's Bend. Those are showstoppers. They're the most iconic quilts in the American canon, probably. I mean, a lot of people know about the Gee's Bend quilts, so they've had, they get plenty of airtime, and they should. So instead, I decided to pick quilts from people and makers that you may not know. Sometimes quilters and makers, we don't know who they are at all, and surprise you hopefully with those, and a few big names too. And we go from the U.S. to the U.K., the U.S. to the U.K., and then we also go to New Zealand. There's one from New Zealand, and so then y'all, I started doing it, and I started with Mary Jane Hannaford. There's so much that I'm not telling you. See, that's the thing. I'm not just giving you this lecture. It's a whole Susanna. It was different, right? Yesterday. I mean, I'm on stage in front of I don't know how many 100 people, but I have a mic on and I'm on a stage, and it's a different experience, right?
Yeah, this is the bootleg version.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah.
This is not what happens on stage.
Not exactly. I mean, I'm very polished. I'm not in a hotel room in my jams. I don't do this. But I should. That was great. Okay. So, but I like talking. I mean, I don't know. It's fun to go through it. So the Mary Jane Hannaford person I wanted to start with because this quilt changed everything for me, you guys. It really did. This Mary Jane Hannaford, we've talked about her on the show. She was born in Devon. And then she moved to Australia. But she made quilts. She was and I learned more about her. She was a single mother, and she had one daughter, and she had 9 grandchildren. And she made her quilts when she was much older. She was like 83 when she started making quilts. But when I saw this quilt, it changed everything for me, because I was like, oh, quilts can look like that? Like, quilts aren't just like Fons and Porter quilts. I mean, I had seen Amish quilts, I had seen, stuff, but I wasn't really looking at quilts, and I hadn't ever really looked at quilts until I started making them. When I started making them, I was really making the traditional Fons and Porter quilt. I mean, that was the world I was in, Yeah, Padma, she was 83. And she puts it on her quilt sometimes too, like made by Mary Jane Hannaford, age 81, or maybe it was 81 that she started. Anyway, in her 80s. And so when I saw this quilt, I was like, oh my God, okay. And it started to be a problem, for me, because it was just so extraordinary. And so this it's a wedding quilt, and it was made in 1922 by Mary Jane Hannaford. The leaves are perfect, the goose is perfect, everything is perfect, and she has all these little details in her quilt, applique, and these figures like that angel and the little goose. It says Advance Australia Fair, the advance, like as in Advance Australia, and I think that looks pretty good. I mean, it seems to be like everyone's involved, right, in advancing Australia. Including kangaroos. Hey man, kangaroos. And there's only so many quilts of them, or quilts by her, that we have, but they're all just really, really, really cool. And this is called the Goodnight Quilt, and it was also made in 1922. Isn't it wonderful, Artisan Ed? Stokey Ware, what's going on? What's up? Wedding quilt. Imagine getting this for your wedding. Exactly. I mean, there's wedding quilts, and there's wedding quilts. Oh wow, I just saw something. Hold on. Oh, I can zoom. Look at those. That's New Zealand and the Union Jack. I didn't even see it before. But here's what I can't do when I'm giving a lecture. Zoom in like this. Oh, well now, okay, hang on now. So I brought an external monitor, you guys. Look at this. Oh, there's a little rainbow above my head. Hang on now, let me get over here. Oh, everything's so hard. Why? Okay, yeah. Hold on now. Hold on. Oh, here. So we can go. Oh yeah, these little guys. These guys are great. So you love the what near the chicken. Wait, Mother Nature says near the chicken. The flowers near the chicken. If you're saying I love or what are the flowers near the chicken, or I love the flowers near the chicken, and we're talking about quilts, life is perfect. I mean, look at the flowers near the chicken. Like, it's great. The crow, look, she has crow, and what does that say? That's another bird. Oh, look at this. I'm going to zoom in. Off to school. This big moth. Anyway, so yeah, they didn't get that kind of detail yesterday, but Mary Jane Hannaford, man, the first show-stopping artist from. The first show-stopping artist from the program. Yeah. Okay, now I see. Okay, so, yes, seagull. Okay, they got that detail. Then I talked about Yvonne Wells. So see, we went US, UK, UK, US, UK, US, and then Yvonne Wells, And I talked about how, to me, Mary Jane Hannaford and Yvonne Wells have a relationship, separated by time and space and oceans, at least one ocean. But, Yvonne Wells she's alive and well and living in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. This is called Raggedy Andy. It was made in 1982. It's about she and her husband, by the way. She's the messy one, and he's the one who has more open spaces. But, Yvonne Wells she puts her faith into her quilts a lot. She does a lot of religious iconography, in her work. She does lots of faces. There's lots of faces in Yvonne Wells's quilts. We saw some of them yesterday, a couple of them. An early Yvonne Wells quilt that looked very different. But look at this, see? There's a goose. Mary Jane Hannaford and Yvonne Wells could kick it. And yeah, so, these quilts that she made are like, they tell a story too. This is one on the left is Miss Liberty Up Close and Personal. 1995, and then I have the wrong caption there. It's okay. Scenes of domestic life, and it's just wonderful. By the way, hello, okay, proud. Never too late to celebrate. I'm with you. I don't have wine. It's barely 4:00. Okay. So yeah. In this one. So I gotta hide the chat for a second because you gotta see this. I didn't go into this yesterday. Remember, this is the bootleg version. But this quilt on the right. Why am I missing? Those are like the two caption problems I had. I apologize. That should have a credit line or a caption underneath it. That quilt on the right. But that quilt was what she stitched on it. What Yvonne did is she took a quilt that she found, an abandoned quilt, right, like at a flea market or something, some quilt that no one wanted, and she appliqued on top of it. And so the quilt that is sort of the bars, right, the strippy bars, that was already. Oh yeah, I can move the bubble. I can make the bubble smaller. How about I'm small? Help! Oh no! Okay. What if I'm just like this? Yeah, the bubble's kind of big, but it is it's the bootleg version, but that is fair, Dee Marie. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it like this. I'll keep it like this. Anyway, so she took this old quilt and then she appliqued on top of it, and you know what? And the story of the story quilt. Let me zoom in. Is that it's a story of an old man and a young man. You see, and the young man is looking at the old man and he's saying. Yeah, Mother Nature, exactly. The old man the young man says to the old man, "You've wasted your life, the old man." Like, who is this jerk coming through? Oh, that's so funny. So Eric's here. I don't know. I don't think I told people Eric met me in London. So anyway, you have to say hi at some point. So the young man is like, "You've wasted your life, old man. Look at all these things you haven't accomplished in your life." And the old man says, "You know what? I've had a lot of hardship in my life. And you don't even know what you're talking about. So chill." And basically what he says and what Yvonne says about this quilt is that all the stripes, all of the different stripes in the quilt, each bar represents a hardship or a circumstance that this old man, who was once young, had to deal with. And he's like, a snake, like bit my foot or something, or my wife passed away. And so, this is his life. This quilt represents his life. Look at that clothes hanging on the clothesline. And it's like, you're young, but you'll know, later that life is full of a lot of hard things that can derail your plans and can change the way that you change the things that you thought, you would do, right? And so I thought that was wonderful. And I think it's a really cool thing to do with an old quilt, don't you think? Don't you just think? That's what I think. So maybe if you find an old quilt, you guys, maybe that's just the palette for your next quilt. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah. He's sitting down. Yeah, the man in the yellow suit has his head on backwards. Oh, does he really? He does. He's got his head on backwards. That is so great. Yvonne is great. And she's funny, but Yvonne Wells is great and funny. Anyway, so let me jump ahead because, one day we're going to do this for real in some kind of official way. And you'll enjoy it more, the official version, right? The bootleg version is fun because you feel like you're getting away with something. But the official version is, this one's good. Francoika, one of my favorites. I think it was Stokey Ware. I think it was a road running up the quilt. I think that's the road he's traveled, right? It's fabulous, that whole concept. Padma, I'm telling you, that's what you got to do. Mother Nature, or we can use one of our less favorite quilts. Yeah, absolutely. I made a couple quilts that I did not think were very successful. Maybe I could do something with them. Stephanie Cake, I have a question. Are you there, Stephanie Cake? Because I can't see you, but that's me. Okay, of course. Are you there? She's like, I'm. Yes, I'm the cake. You're yes. Okay, so have you ever made a quilt that you were like that didn't work?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I have one that's it's sitting nearby, and I keep thinking, what am I going to do with you?
What do you think went wrong? Like, was it a design problem or a launch problem?
I think it just didn't come together the way I expected it to. So yeah, I guess it's a design issue. It's an applique thing, and it
Yeah.
it just never quite made it.
You know, it's an interesting thing when, like, because, like, I'm sure you've started things that you were like, yeah, this is not working. Like, that done it a million times. That's how UFOs are born, right? But the ones that you finish, that it's like, you know what I mean? It's like you finish it because you think it's working, but then later you're like, oh.
Well, it kind of feels like you get to a point, and isn't it that they call it like the fallacy of sunk costs? You're like, I've gotten this far, I have to finish it.
Yes, exactly. Yes, the honoring sunk costs. Yeah, it's a terrible idea. It makes no sense. You're like, I bought the couch and I hate it, and I spilled tea on it, but it cost $5,000, and so I'm gonna live with it for the next 30 years. You know, it's like, well, I don't know. Yes, I can, Artisan Ed. Actually, I can do better than that. I'm not even going to zoom in on it. I'm going to show you the whole thing. I'm going to show you the whole thing about Fran. Yeah. So wait, let's do it right now. Hang on. So okay. So yes. So back to the talk. And Dee Marie. Yeah, I wanted to know from you guys too, though. Dee Marie says one quilt that she did not like, and you gifted it. And the person who received it thought it was the best thing she ever received. I love it. There are things we can do with these quilts that are not our favorites. Anyway, so Fran Soika was one of the people from the US I wanted to talk about in the lecture. She was, to me, one of the showstopper makers. And this quilt I saw in a book, on the internet. This is a detail shot of a quilt by Fran Soika. And I saw it years ago, and I think it was on Pinterest. I swear it was on Pinterest, and you know how I feel about Pinterest. But I loved it. I couldn't get it out of my mind, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I could not find where this quilt came from. It didn't have a name on it. This is why Pinterest is kind of the worst sometimes. But then I found it. I finally did. I found it in a book, and it was by Fran Soika, and this is the full quilt. I don't know if you people have noticed, but when I show a UK quilt, it's on a black screen. And when I show a US quilt, it's on a slightly blue screen. I just thought subtly, we'd hope, I don't know. But it's made in 1980 by Fran Soika. And I think she must have thought about bojagi, right? The Korean bojagi technique of patchwork, because it really, really reminds me of that. But we can't know. Maybe we can. If someone knew Fran or knew about this quilt, it would be great if we knew. But Fran, I talked about Fran Soika and how I just don't know that much about her. I've looked, and also in the audience yesterday were Leslie Levy, the executive director of the International Quilt Museum, Carolyn Ducey, the head curator at the International Quilt Museum, Rod Kirikoff, the collector, author, and man about town. Rod Kirikoff was in the audience. And I mentioned people from Liberty, Eleanor Gager and Adam, what is his last name? And the head archivist for Liberty. And she was fabulous. God, she was great. And they loved the lecture. They came up and they were like, ah! And I was like, awesome. So that's good. Because I knew them. I hadn't met the head curator. Her name was, I forget. I won't say it. Mary, I don't know. Anyway, so they loved it, and the curator at the Quilt Museum, I mentioned it because I want to ask Carolyn more about Fran Soika. I know that she lived in Ohio. I know that she did stunt sewing. We call it stunt sewing sometimes for people. So she sewed for Ed Larson, a very famous quilt maker, and she lived around Amish folks. So she made the quilt on the left for someone else. It was designed by Kurt Boehringer. She made that in 1981 under his, for him. She executed his vision, executed his design. But the quilt on the right she made in 1986. It's called Monday in Middlefield. And she was in Ohio. There were Amish folks living around her. And so she took the inspiration from that and made this wonderful quilt, which, as I was looking at it when I was putting the show together, I realized it's a square and a square. I mean, the actual construction, right, ignoring the pictorial part, this is an Amish, motif, right? Or it's a classic Amish quilt design to have those frames and those squares in the square. So that's really great. So then, but I said no, But Fran's masterpiece, the showstopper from Fran Soiko that I had to show you, was Polynesia the Sky. Hey, Rock Dog Spike's mom. I'm so happy to see you. Gates Mills, Ohio is about 20 minutes from me. Excellent. Excellent. Yes, it's beautiful country. Oh, that's so cool. Dee Marie says, Quilt Nerd is like a less formal version of this wonderful lecture. You know what? That is exactly what it is. I wouldn't have said, oh, this is a wonderful lecture, but it is absolutely. Quilt Nerd, the format is like, it's like doing a lecture together. Well, that would be confusing, but it is. It's like, oh, you know what it is? This is what Quilt Nerd's like. Quilt Nerd is my brain while I'm putting a lecture together, but 10 times better because I'm doing it with you. Like, we're doing it. And that's exactly what I wanted from the start. Dang it. I was like, I do all this research. Can I talk to somebody about it? You know? But that's exactly what it is, Dee Marie. That's absolutely, I love that you said that. It's like a less formal version of a lecture. Totally. Definitely less formal. But this is Fran Soika. So let's take a look at the details. Oh, no, sorry. Not yet. So Fran made this quilt. And it is called Polynesia the Sky. And she made it in 1986 after Henri Matisse. Henri Matisse made this piece in 1946 called Polynesia the Sky. And it's a print. It's an art print. Lithograph, I'm not sure. But he made it this in 1946, and then Fran did her version. And when you put them side by side, oh, quilt church music for sure. And yeah. So I mean, it's just wonderful, right? This is Fran Soika. And so I have to know more. And I asked the curator in the audience, Carolyn Ducey, to tell me more about Fran sometime, or tell me what they know about her, because they said, and I looked at her obituary, and she was well known as a quilter, but in the book that I have, where the Amish buggy quilts on the cover, the Ohio Quilts of the Ohio Western Reserve, I think it is. It's definitely in the. Okay, could you check the book list? It's Quilts of the Ohio Western Reserve, I think. It's on the cover, that book. They don't have very much about her, though. They just say that she was and they were writing it when she was alive. They said Fran Soika is one of the most well-known quilt people, but she's not published nearly as much as other people. And there's a detail shot of I found this picture in the Museum of American Folk Art's big book on quilts. Anyway, pretty cool. Oh, and I talked about the Fonte Asafa flags, y'all, because look at that. I mean, there's a Union Jack on almost every one of them. Well, I mean, after, they were colonized by Britain, And so I talked about the whole thing, that Ghana and the militia groups, and how they were these different groups of the militia, protectors and gangs and things. Why is that off center now? And they made these flags to tell their enemies, oh, we're going to get you, we're more fierce than you. Look, they bit the head off. The fearsome monster bit off the head of the guy. Thanks, Steph. M. Sujan, I am so happy to see you. Life has been in the way the past 2 mornings, so I'm so happy to catch this live. We're so glad you're here. Oh my God, I'm in a hotel room. Help, I'm in a bubble. Bink, bink, bink. Ow, ow, ow. Steph, you're so small. Okay, now you're bigger. Okay. So yeah, he bit this guy's head off. That's not cool, but what are you going to do? And so I thought that this is really funny too. Lots of animals. I realized I am really prejudiced toward pictorial quilts. If I'm going to show you a bunch of awesome quilts, they're probably all going to have pictures on them. I talked about the cargo collection. Okay, Grandma Carpenter, the house. That's what I say. So I talked about that. These are so wonderful. I saw people taking pictures of the slides, which is great. I mean, absolutely. If you're at a lecture, you can totally take pictures of the slides. I mean, that's another thing. Like, what are you going to do? Publish your picture of a slide in a book? I mean, you should. If you're going to post something, you should for sure tell people where you got it. But I mean, I always encourage you all to take screenshots. Take screenshots all day. Just don't record this episode of Quilt Nerd and then put it on the internet. I mean, obviously, right? Not that I'm saying anyone would do that, but like there's a difference between sharing stuff you see in the world and, infringing on people's, copyright. So anyway, so Grandma Carpenter. Then I talked about Pauline Burbage, and let me tell you something about Pauline Burbage that I learned was, and this, I don't think we've seen this on the show. I didn't show you this. Let me zoom in on this. I learned when I was reading about her. This is a kind of an early quilt. This is like 1981. Pauline Burbage went to fashion school. She studied at St. Martin's. So Pauline Burbage is in Scotland. And she went to school in London, and she was studying fashion. And she made a patchwork jacket that was pieced, a pieced jacket. And she was like, oh, well, this is cool. And so she started working with patchwork and stuff. And she said, I saw pictorial quilts and I liked them, but I was interested in trying to do some pictorial work in strips, like in pieced pictorial, which, yes, you have succeeded, Pauline Burbage, because you have made these herons out of strip piecing. I mean, could you die? Could you just, how cool is this? Oh, well, Dee Marie, I gave the pitch at the end of the lecture for sure about Quilt Nerd, and I'll show you what I did. So that's heron quilt. And that's the only detail they could get yesterday, because I couldn't zoom in like I just did for you. That was better than nothing. Talked about these optical illusions and then how her work changed over the years. The Sioux artist once known, the pictograph quilt. Talked about this one, yet another quilt with pictures on it. Anyway, it was really good. And then I talked about the star quilts and how it's similar to the Hawaiian quilt situation where people, absorbed different motifs and things and made it their own. The Native American quilt is a similar situation. Bronte sisters, that was fun. And a lot of people took pictures of this because they didn't know. People I know what I did. I know what's going on, you guys. No, okay. They didn't know that the Brontes made a quilt. I heard it was a very British audible gasp, but I heard an audible gasp. They were like, oh, yay! Oh, we have a soundboard, yes! Wait, that was chef's kiss, perfect. That was perfect. I want to do it again, but it couldn't have been any better. But it's so fun to hear it. There was an audible gasp from the crowd. Oh, no, I didn't hear it. There was an audible gasp from the crowd. Okay, good. Yeah. And then they were hyperventilating. It was fun to show them that. And then I showed them some of the students' work, just one picture from the workshop that we did with Jenny. Yes, and did we talk about this, you guys? Did we talk about the Beatrix Potter quilt? I didn't talk about this yesterday. I just showed them this, we did the Bronte Sisters workshop because the Bronte Sisters made a quilt. And then we should do a Jane Austen workshop because Jane Austen made a quilt and we have. And then Beatrix Potter made a few quilts, but this one, I think we talked about it. But no, we couldn't really because we were going to do the workshop. Jenny Smith and Kay Walsh and I were going to do a workshop on this quilt for Quilt Folk, but it's pushed back because I don't live here in England anymore, so we don't know when we're going to do it. But I couldn't talk to you about this when I first learned about this quilt because I didn't want to screw up, the workshop that was upcoming. So let's look at it right now. This was, yes, Word and Burner, you remember. Hey, Artisan, I'm so glad you came by. We can't wait to see you. Come back, Artisan Ed. You are most welcome here. It was made by her mother. That's right. This, hey, Perry Bird. Oh, wow. Perry Bird. Perry Bird says, I saw the lecture yesterday with my mom. And believe me, I told her all about Quilt Nerd. Woohoo! Thanks, Mary. It was so interesting. That's so great. Can we get some welcome baskets in the chat for Perry Bird? This is fantastic. We are so glad that you're here. This is an on-the-road version of Quilt Nerd. I don't have the chat box up on the screen, but soon I'll put it up. I'm just giving the highlights, of the lecture yesterday and chatting with friends because we love our people. Hey, Earth Girl, now I don't know if I saw you come in, but I say hello, and if I did see you come in, hello again. So I took a picture of this quilt, and like I said, I didn't talk about this yesterday because I had to to zip along. There's a lot of content in an hour. At the V&A, there was an exhibit. I took this picture. It was kind of dicey whether I should have done that or not. But, again, it's a picture of a quilt through a glass thing in a dark room. So the quilt that you're seeing it was a Beatrix Potter exhibit at the V&A, and I got to see it right before we left London. I think the day before I left, we went to see the Beatrix Potter exhibit, and they had wonderful pictures of her art, her drawings, obviously, and artifacts from her life. And they had this quilt. This is a shadow here. You can see the lights, reflected in the glass. So I wish I had a good flat shot for you, but this isn't bad. And this was made by her mother on August 8th in 1863. And let's just enjoy the splendor of this because the live stream format is different from a lecture format. It's just so different in many ways, and it's fun because we can linger if we want to. So, this was given to Beatrix Potter, and I think she was married. She had a really interesting life. I'm trying to remember exactly the details, but I think she was married a really long time. I don't know. Anyway, this quilt is silk and wool. And this border, how about that? This Greek key kind of border, it's really something. And it's just one border. I'm going to zoom out so we can see the whole thing again so you understand where you are, right, when we look at the quilt closely. Obviously, when they hang a quilt like this, and you probably know this, but when a museum displays a quilt like that, it's because it's quite fragile / heavy, fragile and heavy. That's kind of a paradox, but when it comes to a quilt, it can be really true because it's an organic thing. It's made of organic materials. 1863, quilts are so wonderful because you can think about the context of history. That's part of the reason we're even here is we like to study history. And 1863, that's the Civil War in America. That's smack in the Civil War, RHPL. RHPL. Royal Hollyhock, Paul. I got nothing. What starts with L? Nothing. It doesn't make any sense. But what does RHPL mean? What is that? I don't know. Well, if we get to do, and part of the reason we didn't do the exhibit or the workshop thing on Beatrix Potter yet is because we asked the V&A about filming, getting some footage of the exhibit and of the quilt. And it was complicated because it's not the V&A, it's the copyright. I guess that's like a theme today, talking about copyrights, but it's Beatrix Potter, right? Beatrix Potter is highly copyrightable and it's very valuable intellectual property. So for us to film, it wasn't really up to the V&A. It got a little complicated, So we couldn't do that. So that was kind of prohibitive. I just remembered that. Were they her and her husband's initials? Well, Stokey Ware, you'd think so, but she was Beatrix. Oh, but wait, maybe it was Beatrix a nickname? I don't know. I must know more. Anyway, I talked about Rumi O'Brien yesterday for a U.S. person, and I don't think that we looked at this quilt on the show, and I just have to because the story about it is great. And then we'll move on, you guys. Then I don't know. I got a couple more I'd like to show you from the lecture, but I want to make sure everybody's feeling engaged. I think we haven't dropped viewers precipitously, so it's probably okay. This quilt is called, Hiding in the Shrubs. Hiding Under Shrubs. I'm Too Famous. So Rumi O'Brien made this quilt when she had an exhibit. Oh, okay. Word and Burden. Helen Beatrix Potter. Wha-bam. There you go. William Heelis. We have people and their name. They have been represented. Hers are on the inside. Oh, interesting. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Pemberito, for noting our Quilt Nerd directory. That's fantastic. So she made this quilt when she had her first art exhibit of her quilts and her first solo exhibition, at a gallery somewhere. And Rumi says that the exhibition was very well received, and she started getting all of this attention from people, but she didn't like it. She didn't like it. She's not a public person like that. She doesn't want to get all that attention on her. So she literally like left the gallery exhibition and went into the weeds, like the shrubs, and lay down to hide. And so the quilt is called Hiding in Shrubs, I'm Too Famous. And I'm going to go to the image I had up there because you can really see, look, that's Rumi hiding. And I guess the geese or the swans are the attention. And she's like, I don't like it. The bird squawking scribbles. I know, yeah, it's perfect. It looks just like birds sound, like geese sound, Looks just like it. So great. So Rumi was a representative of America. Ernest Haight. Oh, I guess I had 2 Americans in a row. That's weird. Anyway, so here's something interesting about Ernest Haight. And we haven't talked about him on the show. He was from Nebraska. And one of the things that I learning about him was that his father encouraged him to make quilts, his dad. And so this was one of the first quilts that he made in the 1930s. Look, this guy, he was an engineer from Nebraska. He made these couple quilts in like 1930 something, 1940. And he made quilts up through the 60s and the 70s. And he made, I don't know, like 600 quilts in his lifetime or something. But he was encouraged by his father to learn how to quilt. And he made these for like his grandchildren. He made like a series of 5. And so one of the sons, one of the good boys, and it would be true for the girls too, but it's interesting that, a male grandchild of Ernest Haight would have been, given a quilt from a line of men, right? Instead of I've never even heard of it before in this way, that you would have the patriarchs of the family instead of the matriarchs of the family doing the quilt tradition. It's fabulous. This is a detail shot of one of his quilts. That's like totally crazy. Okay, and then I ended the show with Cat Jones and Bling, and so I had to dip into the Commonwealth a little bit. Anyway, so that was the thing, guys. And then I closed the show by saying thank you and talking about sort of wrapping it up, and then I talked about Quilt Nerd, and I talked about how great it is and how fun it is, and how we are on every week, and I explained the backwards N because I was like, maybe you don't understand what's going on here. But let me tell you, once you do know about the backwards N, it's a secret handshake. The logo is the secret handshake for the true quilt nerds out there. And I said, you must come to the show. And Perry absolutely did. And Perry's going to tell her mom, or she told her mom. And then hopefully your mom will come and join us as well, because we really do have a good time. And then I thanked them, and then I took questions for a very short amount of time. And one of the questions was, where can we see your lectures when you're not live in front of us? So that was way cool. Okay, so I'm going to get big again. That was fun to go through the highlights, you guys. Thanks for checking it out with me. Okay, here we go. So back in the hotel room. So now what we're going to do in the time that we're going to spend together today, let's watch these 2 little short videos about liberty, because as I mentioned, I'm not sure that that people are always aware of, sometimes we say things on this show like the G's Ben quilts, and Perry, you should know, usually I'm not sitting in a hotel room. Usually there's a quilt behind me. I really want you to know that. This isn't the full experience. Anyway, but a lot of times, we mention G's Ben quilts, and we talk about them like we know what they are, because we do. And we talk about, the backwards N, and, not everybody knows this stuff. And so it occurred to me that, at the show, people were excited to go to the Liberty booth and see Liberty. And we went there and we looked at wonderful quilts with Liberty, and, but Liberty of London is kind of confusing, like as a concept or as an entity. If you don't know what it is, it's, Liberty of London is a place, and it's also a company that produces textiles, and it's a place that's a department store, that's the best, most beautiful department store ever. We can take a look at the outside of it. In this video, I'm sure that they'll show it to you, but it's got a long history here in England. Mr. Liberty was his name. Mr. Liberty was a textile designer, and I mean, it started from there, and we may hear some of that, but we might have a little bit. We might have a little bit of history we can watch too here in the end of the show, or the final segment of the show. Nose to Quilts, hello, good to see you. And this is more like the older London shows before I had the green screen. It absolutely is. And remember, even when we started the show, I didn't realize that I could be big to start the show. Like at the very beginning of Quilt Nerd, I was always small in the corner. Do you remember that, Kate? Were you watching back then? I mean, that was early. Yeah, and I was just like, during the parts where we're not looking at something on the screen, I could be on the screen. Oh, we've learned so much. We've learned so much. So let me get back into my little small place here so we can watch a video together. Okay, it's all queued up. How about that? All right. Little Bird Stitch, it's so good to see you. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that, seeing a little bit of the lecture. That was fun. That was fun. Mother Nature says, I had never heard of Liberty until QuiltCon 22. See, there's always a first time that you hear something, and then, oh, sorry. I got an external monitor for the road, but it's new. I've never used it before. Could you tell? All right. So this first video is 4 minutes and 51 seconds, and it's called Behind the Scenes in the Liberty Arts Fabric Design Studio. And you know what? This is 10 years ago. It's 2012, but it looks great. Liberty is known, okay, let me show you and not tell you. Here we go. I'm going to pause it and read, okay, for the people who are doing other things. It's a great way to watch this show while you're sewing or doing whatever. This says, meet the Liberty Art Fabrics design team and find out what's inspired their Autumn-Winter 2012 print collection.
The Autumn-Winter 2012 collection celebrates the innovation of the textile process. We explored a broad spectrum of techniques by visiting screen and block printers and collaborating with digital artists and embroiderers.
Hi, my name's Polly, and the design I created for Autumn-Winter 12 was called Childhood Treasures, based on a Victoria screen in my mother's house when I was growing up. And my sister and I used to spend hours trying to find all the little different pictures, and this, particularly the elephant that I've put in the design. We used to try and spot him because he used to get lost, and we never used to be able to find where he was again. So we used to spend a long time looking at this Victorian screen.
Okay, so did you hear that? She looked at a Victorian screen, not the computer screen, a screen for in the house, right? Some kind of home decor kind of thing. And I think there were screens that were sort of like fans too, or something like that. But anyway, and so they were taking Victorian textiles and looking at them, adapting them, pulling motifs from them. That's the Liberty thing. And by the way, quilters care about Liberty because of this fabric. I don't know if I said that explicitly, but the fabric that Liberty produces is just coveted by quilters in the United States in particular, because it for a long time is really hard to get. And I think it's still, Cake, can you get Liberty? I mean, I know there's an American distributor, but like, what's the deal with getting this fabric in the States?
Yeah, you can get it in the States. I know Liberty tends to be a little bit pricier in general because it is a very fine textile. But yeah, it's hella expensive in the U.S. because it's all imported. But yeah, there's some stores that carry it. And actually, Word Nerd just reminded me, Joanne got a line, and
really?
I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if it's what the standard of it is, because Joanne is sometimes doesn't have the greatest, but
right, and the quality will not be as good.
54 inches wide, yeah.
Okay, right. Susanna says it's pricey to do. Yeah.
The UK folks are lucky because it is their proximity-wise to get to, whereas it's few and far between here in the States.
It's true. Oh, about $36 a yard. Dee Marie, oof. I got my monitor plugged in. Actually, you know what? I don't need to have my monitor plugged in anymore. The soundboard is coming back, people, because now we're just watching videos, so I don't need that. I don't need that thing. I'm just going to do this. Yeah, $36 a yard. That is a lot of money, and it's really, really pretty. But to that, I say... Got my soundboard back.
But you know what, Mary? Yeah. I think one thing that I can't remember if it was you or Susanna who mentioned it, but that a lot of folks in the UK are using Liberty to make clothing because it does have like that drape and that nice like that feel.
Right. Right.
Whereas here in the States, because of the price, we use it for we make quilts. We don't necessarily get enough to make an outfit.
Right. You make it last, right? You know, it's like I'll put it into a quilt and yeah, exactly. And it'll always fit, you know, it'll always fit. The quilts always fit. So you want to waste it on something that, you know, you outgrow or something like that. So yeah, and Tana lawn, so that they're known for, part of the thing is that the quality of the fabric, and I'm sure they have different weights and things, but Tana lawn is what they're known for, and it's this wonderful, soft, it's almost sheer sometimes. It's just this soft, wonderful cotton, and it comes from Tana. There's a lake. It has to do with where the cotton comes from. I read that. I know that I read that Tana Lake or something is like. Anyway, we'll find out for sure. But it's not like a lady's name or a certain weave. It's a place, Tana lawn. Yeah, interesting. So anyway, let's continue. Wait a minute. Damn. Okay. All right. Lake Tana, Ethiopia. That's right. Yeah, Joanne won't discount it. That's interesting. Joanne won't discount it. Is it the same stuff? Is it the same Liberty? It can't be the same. Maybe it is. Anyway, let's get back to this.
So I used that to create a decoupage image for a design for Autumn Winter 12. This is the original artwork, and I collected lots of different images and hand-drew pictures to put together in a decoupage of ideas based on this Victorian screen that was in my house when I was little.
Hi, my name's Emma Morstan, and I'm the head of design for Liberty Art Fabrics. And the design that I created for Autumn Winter 12 is called Rainbow Rose. The design Rainbow Rose was inspired by the arts and crafts movement, and they use sub-patterns behind larger scale florals. The whole design was hand-painted with inks after being hand-drawn into a hand-drawn repeat. I then hand-stitched into the design in the way that the arts and crafts movement did with their loosely hand-stitched embroideries, which you'll see in many of the arts and crafts houses that you might visit today. The design was called Rainbow Rose because at the time I was pregnant and my older daughter wanted our baby called Rainbow.
Oh, yes.
And we were actually going to call her Rose, so the design was called Rainbow Rose, but in fact she wasn't called either.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm one of the designers at Liberty Arts Fabrics. I was given the brief of creating a design based on embellishment for the embellishment group for Autumn Winter 12. I designed haberdashery, which was inspired by applique designs based on some Japanese images that I saw that I was really liked. So using my inspiration, I created my own design at home, stitching together bits of fabric.
Hi, my name's Shona. The design that I did for Autumn
Hold on, I'm going to go back to something he showed. Oh, wow,
Japanese images that I saw that I was really liked. So using my inspiration, I created my own design at home.
That to me, well, yeah. You see the cards he has down there in the lower right corner of the screen? It's classic Liberty, right? Like there's often like a dark ground and then a high contrast, or there's a high contrast floral motif.
Stitching together.
I've got some pictures of inside Liberty that I'm going to grab in just a minute.
Bits of fabric.
Hi, my name's Shona. The design that I did for Autumn Winter 12 is called Alina. Alina is a digital design. It was inspired by an exhibition that I went to see called The Shadow Catchers at the V&A Museum. It was an exhibition based on cameraless photography. So on the back of that, I went home and I created my own darkroom. I got some photosensitive paper and I went and got some foliage from the garden, kind of dropped different flowers and leaves onto the paper and exposed it and created.
Kind of like cyanotype, huh?
Created about 30 different shots.
Cake, let us know when you find it.
Then on the computer, I amalgamated them all together to produce Lena.
Hi, I'm Sally, and one of the designs that I did for the Autumn Winter 12 collection is this one called Milliner. This design was in one of our groups, which was based on print techniques, and I used some photographs that I'd taken of some pondweed and some leaves. And it's normally a design that we would have to do digitally because there's so much colour in it and it's quite difficult. But because it was based on...
It's so interesting. There is this So 10 years ago, this was made 10 years ago, and I do like the soft focus in and out thing, but I think there was a little much on this video. You know what I mean? Like things are very blurry and you can't see them at all, and then they kind of like come back. Cool Folk does a soft focus, depth of field kind of thing, and it's great. It makes things look cool, but like
Print techniques, we decided to
can't
try and
see
do it
anything.
conventionally.
You know what
with
I mean?
screens.
It's like a
It took
little
about 10 screens to create this design, so we were quite pleased with the result.
Hi, I'm Anna Bruma.
Oh, it's Anna. That's the girl. That's the lady. Okay, that's her. She was at the lecture yesterday. Okay.
The archivist at Livesey, and I'm going to talk to you about Axion, which was a design that was originated from an archive design. The archive is full of orphan pieces that designers in the past were going through the archive, and when they liked something, they just ripped it out of books and they stuck it on a piece of paper, and then it sometimes went in and sometimes not. And so I've got a lot of these loose pieces, so I have no idea where it comes from. Don't know anything about it, but it appealed to me, and so I showed it to Emma, and it appealed to her as well, and it became a very successful design, and here it is.
Oh, sorry.
This is the original, and that's what it
Wow, look at that. So cool.
turned into.
So maybe she didn't like my lecture that much because she was smiling just like that in the video. So maybe she's just like, I am the loveliest person you'll ever hope to meet. Your lecture was lovely. Goodbye. No, she did genuinely like it, I think. Find the Autumn Winter 12 Fabrics Collection in-store and online now. Yeah, so that was kind of neat seeing the process, you know? So now let's see what the printing process looks like. And then we'll just see if this is 1 minute and 30 seconds. And it's to music. That's all it is. But it's fun to see the actual fabric that we're talking about being produced. I thought it was cool. It's so English. It's in English. Field flowers and things. Print in England? I mean, do they? Oh, look at that. It's like printing money. The other thing about Liberty that's so popular is all the guys who work in the warehouse are super cute. They don't talk about it. It's like something that they That's, yeah, classic Liberty. Yeah. Oof. You see how thin it is? I mean, it's almost sheer. You see it almost is. It's like a zillion dollars of fabric right there. Like so much. Was that it? Oh, wow. Printing Liberty Tantalon. Oh, okay. Well, we're not going to do that just yet. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you something that I think is worth it. Let's see here. We've got time to do this. There's no time. Time is nothing to us. Okay, here. Because we went to Liberty of London when did Quilt Folk go to Liberty of London? It was probably 2018, I think. And we went to London and did a special thing on British quilts, and on London in particular. It was a special trip by Quilt Folk. And we produced a little thing. I think I talked about it because of the Grenfell quilt. We talked about it a little bit. The Grenfell quilt, 3 panels from the Grenfell Memorial quilt were hanging at the Birmingham show, and we visited that live at the show. It was really fun. And I knew about the Grenfell quilt because of this. And let's see here. So we went to Liberty, of course, and we looked at the fabric. And I'm going to show you because it'll show the inside of Liberty and the outside too. And so that's important. There's the fabric part, but then there's also the shop or the store. So I think it's right here. Here we go. I found it. And it's okay for me to show this, even though I don't have explicit permission, but that's okay. We're just going to take a look at some of those images from Liberty. Okay. Liberty of London. And these are brilliant pictures. They're taken by Melanie Zacek. And I've got two. Oh, yeah, this is great. This is great. Okay. Full screen. Prepare to be delighted. Now, this is the folder of images that we have. So these are outtakes too. Oh, this is great. There's no better way to see Liberty than this. There's no better way. Well, I mean, except for being there. Let me bring this down. So these are Melanie's photographs, and they are Quilt Folk property, right? Let me go over here and bring this down. That's good. Yeah, that's where it needs to be. Okay, so that's just outside. On the left there is Liberty of London. That's where you see the flag flying. And look at that picture. I mean, Melanie's so good. Melanie is so good. And okay, so part of the story here. Hey, Linda AARP gifted a sub. That's so cool. Thank you so much, Linda, for gifting a sub to Stokieware. So Stokieware, you have a 1-month subscription to Quilt Nerd, and that means you can do the fun emotes, like you can put a welcome basket in the chat when somebody new is there, and in the chat, and welcome to the Quilt Nerd subscription family. You're entered in all the giveaways now too, and we have a book to give away later in the month. So this is the street that Liberty is on. It's near Oxford Street. It's not on Oxford, actually, which is kind of confusing. But from the history, looking at the history, I know that the wood that was used to make to use in the construction was from a ship. It was from a ship, like a British naval ship, and in the Tudor style. Eric always laughs when I say Tudor style. He's like, "You said toot." I'm like, "What are you, 6?" He's like, maybe. So the exterior of the building, and so the fabric is in a different folder. So I'm going to show you that. But this is the vibe, This is how you started Quilt Nerd. Oh, with a gift sub? Is that right, Linda? Is that what you're saying? That would be so cool. Stitch and Deb, hello. How are you, Stitch and Deb? It's good to see you. Look at all those fun emotes. Yeah, the backwards N and the pin cushion is for anybody who just follows the show. You can use, there's a couple things that you can have too. They always have fresh flowers in front of the building, always. Look at that. I mean, rain or shine, and there's a lot of rain in London. But when you go to London, you just have to go to Liberty, and it's a very expensive shop. I mean, you can't just waltz in there and pick up a blouse. Look, this, it goes up. It's this like open, the center of the store is open. So this is like the view from the second floor. And there's handbags, right when you walk in, there's handbags, very, very expensive handbags that I want all of. I want them all. This is a view up, from probably the second floor looking up to it. Stephanie, have you been? Of course you've been. You've been. No, you haven't? I mean, one day.
I have not. It's on my list.
Well, this is a sneak peek, and it might even move up on the list. It's like, because it's like pretty. It's very pretty place. And so on each floor, they have the different departments, and it's big. It's a big place. And so now we enter the haberdashery, and that's what they call it. It's the haberdashery department, where you have the fabric, and you have. There's the fabric, which is around the perimeter. We'll probably see it. And then you have the haberdashery, where you have the buttons and the notions and things. Oh, okay. Well, we're back outside. These might be a little bit out of order, but that's okay. More flowers, not a bad thing. I'm going to make myself a little bit bigger. Why not? Now that we're back. Okay. Flowers. Okay, we're outside. I think. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now I know. Now I know. We got to go to the other folder, and we're going to see the fabric. Okay. Fabric. Okay, here we go. Yes. This is the stuff. This is the goods, man. Okay, look. So this is, now I can zoom in now. I think. Can I? Can I? Well, I can. I hate Dropbox so much. It's the bane of my existence. So yeah, classic kind of, that tiny flowers, very highly detailed. A lot of it is hand painted. It's done on computer now, right? But these are originally, hand painted designs. And this is like, to me, this is like that one, right? That to me is just like, it doesn't get more Liberty of London than that. And that's true, because a lot of the things that have been, a lot of the fabrics are printed, they've always been printed. They're like a book that doesn't go out of print, And so they have like the classics. But there are thousands upon thousands of designs for Liberty of London. So, and there's more all the time, because they have like a Young Designers Award too, which is really neat. So they encourage, designs to come from other people, to come from outside the house. Oh, how about that? That's a nice, we can get all the, this is what we love about high-res photos. Yeah, Stephanie Cake, I just saw her, she's going, oh. Wow. Yeah, I can't see this on TV. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are the ones we just don't get in the States. And I can't speak to what's at Joann right now, but we don't get those.
It's not this one. Yeah, it's not this one. There's going to be, and we'll probably see I hope we can see the larger scene of where the fabric lives, because there's just so much of it, Steph. I mean, there's just so much of it. Oh, I love this. I love this. But here's the thing. So I do find, and I said this the other day, and people had very good answers for it, or very good responses in the chat. But Liberty of London fabric to me is a little bit hard to use, just in the kinds of quilts I make. That's all, because it's so high contrast. You've got really, really dark color and really, really light. And so for me, sometimes with patchwork, it's hard to know where to put it, and that might be silly. But Padma says, one day I should lead a quilt tour of London. That is completely on the list. See, and now we can get Steph's list and your list and my list all taken care of at the same time. Yeah, okay, look, here's a good picture of how it's stacked up. And this is, it's stacked up in so many shelves outside, so the atrium, you're kind of in the atrium, the light's coming down, and it's so cool. Yeah, let's see, all these little fizzy, tiny prints. Oh, I love a fabric. I love a floral fabric on a black ground. That's what you call the background color, is the ground. And I love a floral fabric on a dark ground. Okay. Oh, God. Isn't it, Melanie, good? That light coming in. Just yards of the stuff. Hang on. Oh, we're doing a show. Yeah, it's totally, yeah, Jenny Jenny Smith is a pro at making Liberty quilts, of course. I mean, she wrote the book. It's really true. Our friend Jenny Smith. Wow, that's so great. Look at that. It looks like cutout paper. It is cutout paper. What are we looking at? Are we looking at some kind of display? Or is that fabric? It has to be fabric. It has to be. Huh. Well, I like it, whatever it is. Okay, and this is where they're cutting fabric. The light was hard in this because of that sunlight coming down. It was actually tough to get the picture quality that we wanted, but if I didn't say anything, you probably wouldn't have been bothered by it. But they cut it right there. There's these Liberty gals cutting the fabric for you, pulling out the yardage. This is beautiful. My mom would really like that. She likes those sort of, looks almost Provençal, We didn't actually have an appointment. We were like, we're taking pictures for Quilt Folk. I had a copy of Quilt Folk with me, which is always a good idea because the magazine is so beautiful that when you're like, hi, this is who we're with, they're like, oh, what a beautiful magazine. I'm like, no, can we take your picture? And they're like, yes, please. For this magazine? Of course. Yeah, really great. Oh. Looking good. Oh, okay. We've got, Rock Dog says the Liberty line is on Joann's website. That's pretty wild. I mean, that's a major score for them to be in Joann's fabrics, but it is surprising. I mean, because we love Joann's, man. A lot of people get fabric at Joann's to make quilts and make clothes, and we love it. We love it. But it is, it's not a fancy place. It's a big box store. So it is interesting that Liberty, which is really like the highest end fabric you can get, I think. I mean, it really is. It's imported, from Britain, no matter what line it is. Yeah, yeah.
Liberty has done some surprising partnerships in the
Yeah,
past, though.
yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers. Gosh, it was probably sometime in the early 2000s. They did a partnership with Target.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, here in the U.S. And so I actually have a wallet. I still have it. It is a Liberty wallet, and it's covered with like that like rain fabric kind of like, oilclothy sort of situation.
Cool.
And I love it. I still carry it. But I got it like 15, 20 years ago at Target.
Was it that long ago?
J. Crew too.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's true. And they did something with like Gucci, right? Where there were like Gucci sneakers or something. So yeah, they do those collabs, don't they? I forgot about the Target thing. Man, they should do that again, because my friend Heather has a tote bag, and it's so cool. And it was from Target. It was the Target thing. That's great. So here's what you're dealing with when you shop for fabric at Liberty. Pretty cool. I think there's just a few more here. Yeah. Oh, so good. So Mr. Liberty designed, I think it was like upholstery fabrics and stuff in London. This is like in the 19th century, and he got into, oh God, that stuff. I looked over at stuff and she's like, you just have this look of like, there's something about it. I mean, look at the little bluebells. It's just darling and so fine, and it's just with so much care, like those little tiny flowers. They almost look like grapes or something, but every detail really. So that's what Liberty is, and yeah, Mr. Liberty started. Oh, I think we do that. I think so. Yeah, Mr. Liberty was designing fabrics, and then he got to be he was so good at it. This was a little sample quilt they had. He was so good at it and was so successful, I should say, that he began collecting things, and then he was importing things from all over the world from his travels. He was in love with his wife. He loved his wife. I remember that. I got the tour. I got the whole tour of the place when we were there, and it was kind of a neat love story too. I mean, he was just really in love with his wife, and they traveled the world, and so this store began to sell, everything in London, and it's been there a really long time. I think that's it. So the next time you're in London, definitely go to Liberty. You might only be able to afford a little bit of fabric because, like I said, the goods that they have there. I mean, they have plates and things that are like hundreds of pounds per plate. It's like Barney's, if you've ever been to Barney's, or what's the other one? Not Harry Winston, that's diamonds, but that's also, I think you can probably get diamonds at Liberty too. Okay, we'll end on this one because this is just so good. So anyway, y'all, that is the show tonight. William Morris, William Morris was a designer for maybe was Mr. Liberty an importer? God, I might have gotten that all wrong. Anyway, but he was a businessman who was in the fabric trade, and William Morris did do designs for Liberty, I believe, but only for a while. Anyway, one thing you should know if you're new to the show. Hey, Joyce K 1953, Joyce K. It is so good to see you, and you know what? You're just in time. Because I couldn't have my external monitor and the soundboard together, but now I can. Joyce. We're live from my hotel room. I head home tomorrow let's see, about 11 o'clock. Oh, but I got a story for you before we leave. That's something you need to know about Quilt Nerd if you're new here, is that it's not a presentation. We explore things together. We have fun together. We look at things live and talk about them and watch videos and things, but it's not I didn't have a presentation on liberty for you today. I just wanted to talk about it right with you. So that's what it's about. Here's a story though, briefly before I go. There's been a rail strike, and it's been really something. I might have mentioned it last week, but I really didn't understand how dire the situation was. There are no trains going from Birmingham to London or anywhere on the NEC today at all. A train strike was planned. It's called industrial action, and it was planned for some time for Thursday the 18th and Saturday the 20th. Then, and it affected tube lines too, so the metro here in the city. And this is like a really weird format. Anyway, so I was going to leave on Wednesday and take the train to Birmingham on Thursday for the big show, and then I was going to come back from Birmingham today so I could be at the show one day longer in Birmingham, but it was not possible. So I had to leave last night after the stream. I had to leave. And Susanna and Marianne Dencate, Marianne Tea Cake, she kind of gave us a hot tip. They took off. As soon as the stream was over, Marianne and her friend left. They're like, we're going to go catch a train, because you see, yesterday, the strike, it was one day between the 2 days of strike that they ran the trains, but things were getting canceled right and left. Like the strike was already starting. And so as soon as we were done with the stream, I was like, Susanna, I think I gotta go. I think I better get to that train station. Y'all, if I had left later, I don't think I would have gotten to London. I really don't. It was harrowing. And then I had to change. No one took my ticket on the train. Nobody came through to check tickets. If you need to be a hobo, if you need to be on the lam and be a hobo on the rails, go in there. No, hobo is okay. I mean, I don't know. I picture somebody who's a hobo with like a little rucksack, on a stick. If that's what you're doing, if you're riding the rails as a hobo in England, which is like totally the place to do it, go when there's a rail strike, because nobody checked anybody's tickets, and we were packed in those trains. It was crazy. And I got off at Reading to change trains, and when I got off the train from Birmingham to Reading to change to go to London, this satchel full of streaming equipment, the lights, you guys, the lights that I have for the stream, and the base, the two bases, these are so heavy. I carried these with me all the way here. I have to carry them all the way home. They're so heavy, and I didn't end up using them because there's no place to hang the green screen. Anyway, I left this on the train. The Birmingham to Reading train. I got off the train with my huge other bag and my suitcase, and I left, and I went up the escalator to get on the other train. I mean, it was like escape from New York. I had to get out. I had to get back to London. I left it. And I realized it halfway up the escalator. And those trains don't wait. Those trains are in and they're out. And I was like, oh no. And I said, oh no. And I didn't want to run down the escalator, back down with my suitcase. So I completed my escalator ride, and I flew down the stairs. I'm glad I didn't break my ankle. I flew down the stairs with my suitcase. I was like, ugh. And I was like, oh, I left my bag. And I left my suitcase there right at the train. And I pushed my way in through. I was like, my bag. And people were like, ugh. And I grabbed it from up top. You see, it was up top. It was above my seat. And I grabbed it, and I was like, ugh. And as I was like trying to wedge my way out, the conductor who was down on the platform was like, oi, like, what's going on? We're leaving. And I was like, ugh. And I flew out of the train, and like, I burst out with my bag. And this man, as I was leaving, he was like, that was a lucky one. I was like, yeah, it was. I mean, and it was so heavy. And I was like, oh no. So that, I can't believe it. I can't believe I have this. I can believe that I left it because it's crack up, but I can't believe I got it. That thing was gone. I can't believe it. So that was lucky. And then I got to London. I got into the city. I was so grateful. And none of the tubes were running. They had already shut down the tube. So I had to take a taxi from the station to the hotel. And it took an hour because the traffic was bad. And it took a long time to catch a taxi. So anyway, it was a harrowing journey, but I finally got here. It was so expensive. And I was just glad I could do it. I would have been a 2-hour walk with my heavy bags. But it's funny how things happen, because I was so happy I had that bag. I was so grateful I had the bag. And I was so grateful to actually have gotten to London, because a lot of people would not have gotten there. So I was happy. And I didn't care about the taxi ride. I was like, he's like, I'm sorry about the traffic, miss. And I was like, I love it. This traffic is great. I don't care. So anyway, it was really something. Yeah, it was chaos, you know. Well, you're welcome, Padme. It was a pleasure. Well, I am so happy to have been able to take you with me, and oh my god, and Cake, thank you so much, and Susanna was amazing. You all saw, I mean, helping with the chat and just, you know, helping get stuff. I told you I left the gimbal at the hotel and she went to get it. I was just worried I wouldn't make it back before the lecture. So when you see me next, I'll be back in the office. It'll be Tuesday night at 7:00 p.m. And what you can look forward to now that Birmingham is over, I have to say it's been a lot, but that is put to bed. And now we're going to have some fun with different shows, different formats, trying different things, different segments, you know. We're all doing this experiment, and it's really fun. Cake, do you have any final words? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I definitely want to check in with you before we go. You doing good?
I'm good. I don't think I have any final words. You know, I'm not a morning cat. I'm
That's
an
right.
evening cat.
That's right. It's morning.
You've energized me for the day.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for being there and helping out, and we will see you all on Tuesday. Hey, Ruby Marta, it's so good to see you. You know what? You're right on time. We cheers to you. Mademoiselle Larry, you got to put that bag on your next story quilt. Oh my God, that's brilliant. Yes. I love it. It's a fabulous idea. And also, I just saw somebody else who maybe came in late, but okay. We'll see you on Tuesday, everybody. Happy trails to you. Wish me luck on my journey home. And we will see you later. Love you guys. Bye.